My name is Christine, and I'm 41 years old. I'm a housewife. I met my husband, Mark, at work, and we got married. After 5 years of being married, we had our son, Jake, who is now 5. He's at a really cute age, and I'd love to spend all day with him if I could, but we need money, so I have to work and leave him at daycare. One day, Jake asked, "Mommy, I want an omelette tomorrow." How could I say no to that? Maybe Jake understands how busy I am, because he never asks for difficult meals. I'm not a great cook and don't make fancy dishes, but I think omelets are hard to make. Getting them just right takes skill, but I'm probably just making excuses. Mark was really happy when Jake was born. After waiting for so many years, he was our miracle. We were a close family, always going on drives and trips to the park every weekend. But when Jake turned 3, things started to change. Once Jake grew out of his terrible threes, Mark started coming home later and later. Before that, he used to complain about how hard it was to deal with Jake being fussy, and maybe that's why he stayed out more. Whenever he'd call to say he was working late, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. I knew the truth, Mark wasn't really working late. He was spending time at slot machines, in restaurants, or at the movies. One of Mark's colleagues, who is also one of my old coworkers, told me, "I quit my job after we got married, but I still keep in touch with some of my old colleagues." Mark knows I found out, but he doesn't care. Part of me feels upset about this, but I would rather he be out late than see him get annoyed with Jake's behavior. But Mark started coming home even later, sometimes in the morning. Who does he think he is? Sometimes I could smell perfume on his suit, and it didn't make me feel good. It made me angry. Mark was a good father when Jake wasn't being difficult, so I let it slide. But now, 2 years later, Jake is a cheeky 5-year-old, and I'm tired of Mark's bad attitude. One day, Jake spilled a bit of tea and I said, "Oh no, wait here while I get a cloth." Mark yelled at me, saying, "What's wrong with you? You're 5 years old and can't hold a cup properly?" Jake asked, "Daddy, play with me," but Mark yelled back, "I'm busy, don't bother me." When I asked about dinner, Mark just said, "I don't need dinner," and left. How am I supposed to eat peacefully in a house like this? I don't even want to eat his badly cooked food. I just go out instead. Mark gets mad about everything I say. I suggested, "We should go somewhere on your next day off," and he snapped, "Are you serious? I'm tired from work. Let me rest on my day off." No matter what I say, he just yells. We can't have a normal conversation. It's like Mark is still in his fussy phase, and he's 40 years old now. One time, I asked Mark why he was always so angry, and he yelled back, "It's because you're useless, obviously, and now you're passing that on to Jake. I wish he was more like me." That really hurt. Jake is our son, both of ours. At least Jake has my good looks. Mark was acting like all of Jake's good qualities came from him, and the bad ones were from me. I couldn't believe how rude he was. I kept getting more frustrated with Mark. His words and actions were hurting me emotionally. I even thought about divorcing him. His behavior was close to ending our marriage, but I stayed because I still loved him. Even though Jake was scared of Mark, he still loved him too. I was so tired of being with a husband who was always in a bad mood, but I didn't have the courage to break up our family. One day, Mark brought up something. "A trip," he said. "What?" I asked. "Yeah, a trip with some coworkers. You know them, right? The 2 guys who love their single life?" "Oh, those guys. Yeah, they're going on a trip, and I decided to join them." "Seriously?" I said, shocked. "What's the problem? I've been patient for so long. This family takes up all my time. I never get time for myself, and you spend all the money I earn on useless things. I deserve to relax sometimes. I don't spend money on luxuries. We live very frugally because you only give me the minimum amount of money," I said. This was the truth. I worked hard and made money, but the more I worked, the less Mark contributed to our family. I actually put more money into the household than he did. He was probably spending his money on other things, which is why he could afford the trip. "Shut up. I'm going on the trip in 4 weeks, whether you like it or not, and you better not complain," he said. "Tomorrow." I was shocked by the trip, but even more surprised that it was happening so soon. Tomorrow. I felt my anger rising, and I was about to argue, but then I heard, "Mommy." It was Jake, who was supposed to be asleep. I rushed to him. "I'm sorry, Jake, did I wake you? Let's go back to your room, and I'll sleep with you." But as soon as I touched him, I knew something was wrong. "Jake, you're burning up. My head hurts, Mommy," he said. I looked at Jake's face, and then suddenly, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. I panicked and called an ambulance. Mark, who I thought would come with us, refused. There was so much I wanted to say, but I didn't have time to argue. I had to go to the hospital alone. Thankfully, Jake's test results showed nothing serious, but they kept him in the hospital for more tests, just to be safe. I called Mark to update him. "What do you want?" he answered, sounding annoyed. I could tell he was irritated, but I didn't have time to care. I told him what had happened and asked him to bring a change of clothes for Jake. "Are you joking?" he replied. "I can't make it," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. I said I can't make it. I'm not going to be late for tomorrow's trip. I'm staying with my colleague tonight, he told me. "Are you serious? Your son is in the hospital, and you're still going on a trip?" I asked, shocked. "Of course, he doesn't need me for a simple checkup. He's just got a fever. There's nothing I can do." "Yes, there is," I said. "I've gotta go. I'll bring you a souvenir," he added, then hung up. I tried calling him again, but he had turned off his phone. My anger boiled over, and I had no choice but to call my parents for help. Mark had abandoned his son in the hospital. That was 2 strikes. The 3rd strike was coming soon, and I could feel it. 3 days later, the tests were done, and Jake was back to his energetic self. He'd be discharged tomorrow. I planned to buy him some pudding, but when I checked my phone, it started vibrating. I almost dropped it, but I grabbed it in time. It was a call from Cindy, a former colleague. "Hello?" I answered. "Christine, where are you?" she asked urgently. "Huh? I'm at the hospital," I replied. "Never mind that. There's an emergency. Your husband's been in an accident and passed away," she said. I didn't understand. I thought she was joking. "What? This is a joke, right?" I said. But her voice on the other end was serious, and I started running in panic. My husband had died. That was shocking enough, but Cindy continued. "Apparently, Mark was on a trip with a woman, and she drove into oncoming traffic and hit a tree." I couldn't believe it. Mark was supposed to be with his male colleagues, not with a woman. It didn't make sense. It couldn't be true. I called my parents to ask them to look after Jake, then rushed to the hospital where Mark was. I couldn't help but wonder why they had called the company before me. It seemed like the news wasn't a lie, so I had to hurry. Cindy said the other men Mark was supposed to be with were safe. Of course, that meant Mark wasn't with them. He'd been with another woman. That was 3 strikes. 3 strikes and you're out. I needed to find out for sure if Mark was really dead. I rushed to the hospital. "Honey?" I called as I opened the hospital room door. There was Mark, lying in bed. His hands and feet were wrapped in bandages, but he was breathing. Cindy's news was wrong. Mark was alive. I sighed in relief. "You're alive," I said, moving closer. When I looked at his face, his eyes were slightly open. He seemed shaken, probably surprised that the company had contacted me so quickly. Mark grumbled. "Took you long enough. Your husband's in an accident, and it takes you ages to get here, you useless piece of..." At least he was still his usual self. He looked pretty hurt, but it seemed he had only broken his left hand and right leg. The car was wrecked, though. What luck he had. "I'm glad you're okay," I told him, and he replied, "You better take good care of me." Well, looks like he's feeling fine, I thought to myself. Good to know. I pulled out a piece of paper. "Let's get to it. You may have escaped death, but you don't get a pass on 3 strikes. When I say I'm glad you're okay, I mean your right hand. If you had broken that, you wouldn't be able to sign these papers." Mark looked confused. "What are you talking about?" I unfolded the papers in front of him. "Huh? What's this?" "Divorce papers," I said calmly. "I've been preparing these, which is why I'm late getting here. I know you're hurt, so I'll just leave them here. Make sure you sign them." Mark was shocked. "You're joking. Why would I sign this?" "Wow, you told your girlfriend you were getting a divorce, didn't you?" I asked. "The reason you were coming home late every night was because you were with her, wasn't it? Was this trip your little getaway to prepare for your new life? Well, now you can marry your sweet Michelle." "How do you know her name?" he asked, clearly surprised. "I spoke to her, of course, before coming to see you. I went to visit the woman you were with in the hospital. She was in the same place, recovering from the accident too. She had broken a few bones, but she seemed in better shape than you. Her parents were there with her." I explained to her everything I needed to know. I couldn't tell her I was coming to see Mark, But I had to find out if he was dead or alive. It turned out, he was alive. Even though her parents were asking her questions, she looked at me with a glare and said, "Let him go. I don't understand why you're sticking with him. He doesn't pay his bills. He's out every night. He doesn't even care about his kid in the hospital. And the cheating? It's over." Mark's face went pale. I had expected him to argue, but I wasn't changing my mind. "No, no, she's just for fun," Mark quickly said. "You're the only one I love." "Just stop," I said. "Here's the paper. I've already filled out my part. Even if you tear it up, I've got more copies. Actually, I could just call a lawyer." "A lawyer?" he said, confused. "That's right. We need to talk about alimony and child support, so we should get a lawyer involved." "No, wait a second," Mark said, starting to panic. "What did you just say?" "Think about it. You can keep living your life however you want, spending your money on whoever you like, but if you want to stay with me, you'll have to keep playing your little games with women, while I take care of everything. You'd have a wife at home for security and a girlfriend for fun, but if we get divorced, all that changes, right?" Mark couldn't say anything. He just stared at me in shock, completely silent. "Sorry to break it to you, but your perfect plan is ruined. You can start a new life with Michelle or whoever you want, but my son and I won't be part of it. Just pretend you died and start fresh." I said everything I wanted to say and started to leave the hospital room. Wait, I heard Mark's pathetic voice calling behind me, but I just kept walking. In the following days, I hired a lawyer and started the divorce process. Michelle was discharged from the hospital, and she got involved in the talks too. When Mark said he didn't want a divorce, Michelle got furious. They argued loudly. When I mentioned alimony, Michelle yelled, "You've ruined my life." "I don't care about someone who gets involved with married men," I snapped back. "You're the one who went after me." "Shut up," she shouted. "I never did that," Mark said, trying to defend himself. I thought, can you just sign the papers already? I stayed silent as I watched them argue. Despite Mark's resistance, the evidence was clear. In the end, our divorce was finalized, and I got almost all the alimony I asked for. The child support was paid in a lump sum. Once everything was settled, my lawyer and I left, but Mark and Michelle were still arguing. I wondered how their relationship would survive after this, but honestly, I didn't care. Before leaving, I told them, "I hope you two have a nice life together," which might have been a bit petty, but I didn't mind. I just hoped Jake wouldn't pick up on my petty behavior. Despite everything that had happened, Jake and I found peace again. He was so much happier now that he didn't have to deal with Mark's moods. It made me regret not divorcing earlier. Mark's attitude had caused both of us so much pain. How had I stuck with such a terrible husband for so long? Living just with Jake, I realized something. We were better off without Mark. Every day was now filled with joy. That said, Mark would always be Jake's father. If he wanted to see him, I would let him. I asked Jake, "Do you want to see Daddy?" "No," he answered. "Why not?" I asked. After the divorce, I confirmed that the alimony and child support payments had been made, then sent Mark an email. He replied right away with the subject, "Help." I opened it and couldn't help but laugh. Mark's former colleague had spread the news about his cheating to the whole company, and now Mark was dealing with the gossip and stares. He was making mistakes at work and eventually had to leave the company. "My parents have cut me off. I have nowhere to go. Please help me." Can you believe it? Being the kind person I am, I replied, "Why don't you ask your sweet Michelle to help you?" And guess what he said? "I broke up with Michelle. Her parents cut her off too, and now she's missing. I've finally realized, you're the only one I love. Please help me." His message continued. "I'm behind on my cell phone bill, and it's going to get cut off tomorrow. Please come pick me up." I blocked him after that. We had moved by then, and he didn't know where we were. As I sat down with my tea, Jake came over and asked, "What should we do tomorrow, Mommy?" I thought for a moment. "How about I pack us some lunch, and we go to the aquarium?" Jake's face lit up. "I want to go to the dolphin show." Seeing how happy Jake was, I couldn't help but smile.